Alright, welcome back. If you want to see what absolute sweat-drenched panic looks like, you just have to look at the current state of the Labour Party. We are watching the regime eat itself alive in real time. You've got Andy Burnham, the so-called King of the North, the man who loves the sound of his own voice almost as much as he loves locking down your local pub, desperately trying to claw his way back into Westminster. Why? Because the ship is sinking and the rats are looking for the highest point on the deck. Watch this clip from GB News. They're discussing Burnham trying to ditch his Mayoralty for a parliamentary seat, but listen closely to the fear in their voices when they mention who might replace him.
We're delighted to be joined by political commentator Chloe Dobbs and former Labour advisor Matthew Larser.
Good morning.
Morning to you both. How are you?
We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. Good to see you back safe and sound, Charlie.
Thanks a million. Yeah, bit of a curious trip to Israel and Gaza this week, but only so much we're allowed to look at.
Indeed.
Embedded with the IDF, they still won't let journalists go in independently, but still a very interesting experience to go and see what it was like. But plenty going on back home to come back
Absolutely.
to, especially with this ongoing dramas with Andy Burnham. Chloe, will he be allowed to stand, do you think, or is there going to be that London stitch-up from the NEC?
Well, I mean, it would be interesting to see from his own perspective whether he decides this is worth the gamble. I think that the NEC would shortlist him if he decides that he wants to stand for the seat. But it's a huge gamble because he would have to, of course, give up being the mayor in Manchester. And I think it's not going to look very good for his reputation if he were to step down for his own reasons and then that seat go to Reform, potentially, that mayoralty in Manchester. So it's a huge gamble. And
well, you think the mayoralty could go to Reform?
I mean, it could potentially. I mean, the polls are so fluid these days. But also, I mean, this seat that he's potentially going to stand in, you might look at that and say, oh, that's a really safe Labour seat. But remember what happened in Runcorn last year. I mean, sure, that was Labour stepping down for a more controversial reason, of course, because that big bust-up in the street. But it could potentially happen here. He could end up the mayoralty going to another party and the seat going to another party, him ending up with nothing. So it's quite the gamble.
Stop it right there. Did you catch that? That little quiver when she mentioned the seat or the mayoralty going to Reform? That is the sound of the establishment realising the game is rigged against them for once. They are terrified. For years, these people treated Manchester and the North like their own personal fiefdoms, assuming the working class would just blindly tick the red box forever while Labour pushed mass migration and green agenda nonsense that destroys local industry. Now Burnham is rolling the dice, thinking he can just waltz from one taxpayer-funded job to another, but the landscape has shifted beneath his feet. The fact that they are even entertaining the idea that Reform could snatch the mayoralty or a safe Labour seat proves that the red wall isn't just crumbling, it's being pulverised. Burnham knows that being a mayor is a dead end when your party's imploding nationally. He wants back into the Commons to challenge Starmer, but in doing so, he might just hand the keys to the kingdom over to the populist right. They call it a gamble, I call it the arrogance of a political class that thinks they own your vote. They are scared that the people they've ignored for decades are finally going to punish them, and frankly, it's beautiful to watch.
Exactly, and I think being Mayor of Manchester is probably quite a nice job. He's incredibly popular up there, the only senior Labour figure with better than negative poll ratings. Pretty extraordinary. Do you think, Matthew, that he is, A, likely to go for it, and B, will Keir Starmer let him? A couple of days ago, I thought Keir Starmer wasn't going to let him. He would tell all his mates on the NEC to stop it. But I'm not sure if politically that's possible now.
I think it's quite difficult, and I also think there's a bit of sort of psychological warfare. I mean, the Traitors is finished, so, you know, welcome to the Labour version. So I think the sort of psychological, the psych ops are saying, oh, Andy, it's up to you. We saw the Daily Mail on Friday with Will he bottle it? I wonder if, if there's certain people in Number 10 were encouraging thoughts like that, because now the pressure is all on Andy. If you make out, we're more chilled, it's entirely up to Andy. Will he or won't he go for it? I mean, one local member, not in the next door constituency, posted on Facebook this morning, "Dear Andy Burnham, aka Labour's very own Saturday dad, please don't do this. Thank you for sorting Manchester's buses, but that's not the same as running the country or facing off with Trump and Putin. And we don't want reform to become in the So there's mixed feelings amongst the membership, because there is this kind of feeling that you might leave a chink in the armour for reform to get the Manchester mayor. Actually, I don't think they will, because Labour's changed the electoral system for future mayoral elections back to how it was, which is preferential voting, which means that even if, Labour's chair was disappointing, people from the Greens would be likely to transfer to them.
Sure.
However, I can't remember if that applies to a by-election for a mayor, because I don't think we've had one yet.
No.
So it'd be a first.
I mean, it is a big move in that sense, isn't it, Chloe? That he's letting down the mandate of the people who elected him to represent them in Manchester as well. So there are a lot of risks for him as well, aren't they, for Andy Burnham, if he does choose to do this? Yeah,
and people won't like to see... If it looks as though he's putting himself and his own ambitions before those of the party and Manchester, that's not necessarily going to be a good look for him. A lot of the times when he's tried to make moves, he's often ended up then backing out. I mean, he tried to go to Labour Party conference and make moves there. He ended up leaving the event early, sort of with his tail between his legs and not having got where he wanted to. So it's going to be very interesting to see. A by-election in a mayoralty would be something very interesting to see. We're going to see at 5 o'clock what happens because he's got that deadline. There's a really tight schedule from the NEC for this by-election. This time next week, they will already have picked a candidate. So we'll see what happens.
Where does this leave Wes Streeting, Matthew? That's what I'm so interested in, because he's been sort of tiptoeing around Keir Starmer for quite a while now. We've seen a few little argy-bargies in the press. If Andy Burnham does go through with this, does stand for the seat, will we start hearing Wes Streeting breaking ranks with Keir Starmer publicly? Are we going to see a Wes Streeting leadership challenge?
I think the answer to that is no. There's been some speculation that Wes would move quickly, so that he went before Andy became the leader, before Andy got back into Westminster and was therefore potentially able to stand. Absolutely. No indication of my preferences by that Freudian slip. But I think that's unrealistic. I mean, there was, I think the thinking is that leadership challenge, if it came, would come after the local elections in May. I think one of the problems that Andy Burnham's got is, if you're a Labour councillor up and down the country, or if you're a Labour candidate in Scotland or Wales, and you have the Andy Burnham psychodrama going on while you're trying to fight an election over the next 10 weeks, I think that will do we think will do your chances harm, and therefore will do Andy Burnham's chances of becoming leader harm. So actually, I personally think there's a very strong possibility that it won't be Andy Burnham who'll be the candidate in the Gorton and Denton by-election. I think he might not quite do it, because he could end up with nothing. He could end up not even in Parliament, or he could end up in Parliament, Billy no mates, having caused a lot of trouble, and just as a humble backbencher. I'm not quite sure that King North wants to be a humble backbencher.
And you could see both the Mayoralty and potentially Gorton and Denton both going
with his reputation. You could. It's
a huge gamble.
You've ended up delivering the Mayoralty to somebody else, and you haven't made it to Parliament, and you are literally Andy No Job.
But Chloe, at this point, the amount of infighting in Labour at the moment, the number of people vying for position, almost anticipating that there could be a leadership replacement. It feels like every weekend we spend more time on this channel just talking about the people trying to openly briefing about making moves, or even being briefed against by number 10, instead of actually talking about what they're planning to do. This is just adding to that problem for the government, isn't it?
Yes, they're starting to look quite like the Tories in that sense. And I think one of the reasons why the Tories failed to achieve the things that they set out to achieve in government is because they were constantly running around like headless chickens, trying to stab each other in the back, going around with spreadsheets, trying to topple whoever the current leader was. And that massively distracts them from actually just cracking on with what they need to do to go about their manifesto pledges. And I think that is what is happening with the Labour Party. And sure, they haven't been in government for anywhere near as long as the Tories were in government, but it does feel, a year and a half after having Labour in power, that they haven't really got anything to show for it.
Haven't really got anything to show for it. That is the understatement of the century. Listen to what Chloe is admitting here. Labour has become the Tories. And she's right. This confirms everything we've been saying about the Uni-party. It doesn't matter if the tie is red or blue, the incompetence, the backstabbing and the utter disdain for the British public remain exactly the same. We were told Starmer was the adult in the room, right? We were told the chaos would end once the grown-ups were back in charge. Instead, 18 months in, and what do we have? We have Wes Streeting sharpening his knife in the corner, Andy Burnham trying to parachute in from Manchester like a saviour, and a government that is paralysed by its own internal student politics. They are running around like headless chickens because they have no actual vision for this country other than managed decline and globalist appeasement. Burnham thinks he's the answer? Give me a break. He's just another careerist bureaucrat who thinks the problem with Starmer is that he's not Labour enough. The reality is the entire system is rotten. They aren't governing, they are looting the ruins. They are fighting over who gets to be captain of the Titanic after it's already at the iceberg. The British people are seeing that swapping Sunak for Starmer was just changing the drapes in a burning house.
Very, very quickly, Matthew. Obviously, the big question here is Andy Burnham actually the answer to Labour's problems? He is popular in Manchester. Would he do a good job of running the country as a Labour man?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think Andy's a talented guy, but I think as that member posted on Facebook, it's a bit different to nationalising the buses or municipalising the buses than it is to facing off Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump. When we saw at a conference when he put forward, he just sort of said, "Oh, I think the bond markets don't matter." Well, they kind of do. So he'd have to have a much more coherent and thought-through programme.
Right, Matthew and Chloe, thank you very much. We'll see you in the next hour. And Olivia, to that point, I mean, how important is the change in leader for Labour? We've had Carl getting in touch on your say, saying it doesn't matter who replaces Keir Starmer. People just want Labour out. And I think, obviously there's lots of support for Labour Party still, but a lot of people also look at the party and don't really see it as a leadership issue. It's a party-wide crisis.
Absolutely. It does sometimes feel a bit shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic, doesn't it? Getting rid of Starmer, getting Andy Burnham in. Will it make that much of a difference?
Right.
It's actually pathetic, innit? They spent years screaming that the Tories were chaotic, only to take power and immediately devolve into a pack of hyenas fighting over a carcass. Burnham, Streeting, Starmer, it's all just noise. None of them have a plan to stop the boats, fix the economy or save our culture. So here is my question for you guys. Do you think Andy Burnham returning to Parliament would actually trigger a collapse of the Starmer government? Or is he just going to be another useless backbencher watching the country burn from the front row? Let me know in the comments.